What's going on, people? It's Emmanuel for Altenor Media. Now, Atlanta has been crazy popping this season. You know, from the first episode with Cat Williams to the last episode, episode 5 with the Barbershop, and to now the most recent episode, Teddy Perkins. Now, this episode right here was Darius's episode, and they just took it to a whole different level. After this episode aired, Twitter went crazy. Everyone was trying to figure out just what the episode meant, you know, what the different characters represented, you know. So after a few watches of my own, you know, I have my own little theories. You know, the episode was very multi-layered, so I'm just going to touch on a few things. First, you know, I want to touch on the father-son dynamic. I think, you know, they really alluded to, like, the Michael Jacksons and the Marvin Gayes, you know, things like that, you know, where you see what a lot of genius artists, talented artists, a lot of sacrifice was made, you know, for, you know, their genius to be put out into the world. You know, a lot of times, you know, we have parents who put so much pressure on the kids, you know, they abuse the kid, you know, like Michael Jackson, you know, Joe Jackson, he really abused the kids on their way to becoming legends. You know, it took a lot, there was a lot of abuse involved in that. And this episode was kind of showing how somebody like Michael Jackson's life was, his life was basically sacrificed for his music to be shared with the world. You know, he was he really sacrificed his childhood and really his adulthood. Because Michael Jackson, he really didn't get to live. He didn't really have an identity. You know, everything went into the music. So, you know, for because they kind of alluded to it in the episode where he said, you know, great things come from, you know, great pain or something like that, you know. So in order for Michael Jackson to push, you know, the culture forward, you know, with his talents, you know, he basically sacrificed his life, you know. And Teddy says it, you know, we were a sacrifice. So it's sad in that way that we see such sorrow that's associated with such greatness. Someone who brought everyone so much happiness, you know, their life was just so full of sorrow. So now on to my theory. You know, a lot of people think that Teddy is the son, the star, and Benny, the one in the wheelchair, is his father. But I'm seeing it as Teddy being the father and Benny is the superstar son. You know, Teddy set up the museum. He's turning the mansion into a museum and everything. And, you know, he has the gift shop, and he has that one room that he said is his favorite room of all in the museum, which is like a shrine to his father and, you know, to all other fathers, just like that. He said, you know, Marvin Gaye's father, Joe Jackson, Venus and Serena's father, you know, Emilio Estevez's father from The Breakfast Club. If you know that father, he was really hard-nosed with his son. You know, he just wanted his son to win at all costs. So in that sense, I see Teddy, the father, he's kind of building a shrine to himself. He's, you know, his abuse, his forcing, you know, Benny to learn that piano, you know, he's the one who's responsible for creating this genius. And I feel he's also trying to justify the abuse that he inflicted. You know, I abused him, but look what it created. He's trying to just say, you know, the abuse was necessary to create this genius. And it seems like he's setting it all up where for the place to become infamous and even more famous after he sets up, you know, to kill Benny and then make it look like a robbery. That's only going to raise the profile, raise the legend, you know, the hysteria over Benny and the brand and, you know, the museum itself. And if it elevates Benny as an artist, you know, the mystery around him, that justifies the father's abuse even more. So it's really Teddy, the father, really, you know, living through the sun and still trying to create something out of that. And even in that sense, he's always trying to justify, you know, pain leading to greatness. You know, he talks about the sorrow, the lonely life that Benny has to live, but he's, you know, saying, you know, maybe, hopefully, that can produce another masterpiece one day. So he's always trying to justify that pain. You know, they mention Stevie a lot in there too. Stevie is mentioned throughout it, and Stevie had a different path than somebody like Mike. And you can see he's been able to age out in the industry, you know, rather normally. Unlike Mike, who's just dealt with so much, you know, craziness. So I would see, and also if you pay close attention, when he pulls the gun on Darius and brings Darius downstairs into the front room, I'm guessing, and he puts the handcuffs on him, when Benny comes up through the elevator, Benny is already bloodied up. He's full of blood in his stomach area. So I'm guessing that Teddy already shot Benny and he thought he was dead. That's why he was surprised. That's why he said, "Oh, Benny, you're alive," because he had already shot Benny. He already had his plan in motion, you know, to shoot Benny, and then he was going to make it look like, you know, a home invasion attempt. But Benny was still alive. Benny made it upstairs. He grabbed the gun. Boom, he killed the father, and Benny took himself out. And you could see, you know, Benny was tormented. He was really tormented, you know, by his life. And his dad kept trying to justify everything, you know. The ends justify the means. He created a genius. But Benny was tormented. He ended up killing himself. So in the end, was it all worth it to him? What's the price that we have to pay in order to be a genius, and for us as consumers to, you know, see these geniuses? And also the parents, you know, what are you willing to give up to create this genius? So this was a real interesting episode. Now, I think both, I kind of see Michael Jackson in both, you know, Michael as Theodore, the public figure, who, you know, he loves the popularity. He loves that he's beloved. You know, he embraces it. And also there's a tormented, you know, Michael Jackson inside, who was robbed of his childhood. He was robbed of his life. He didn't have a childhood, and then he was just rushed into such superstardom. He had a microscope on him 24/7. And then he had the skin condition, and when he changed his skin color, you know, it was, you know, that had to be real hard for him. You know, you would think that, you know, he's cool with how he looks, but maybe, you know, every time he looked in the mirror, maybe he didn't like, you know, what he saw. So that life, Mike never had a easy life. You could tell, so, you know, some parts, you know, you could tell, like with Teddy and Benny, you could tell that, you know, some parts of him didn't want to be alive, you know, because this was just, it was just torment. So what price are we all willing to pay for this genius, and at what cost does this genius come at, and can we create genius without pain? Because even if we look at somebody like Lil Wayne, you know, everyone says he fell off when he stopped, you know, doing the drugs, doing the lean and all that stuff. You know, so we tend to associate genius with pain and suffering. But can we get, you know, genius out of love? I think that's where someone like Stevie came in. But overall, you know, I thought it was an incredible episode. This show is crazy, and it was crazy to see Donald Glover. He was he was playing Teddy, so he had on the makeup and the mask or whatever it was. It was genius. He did a great job. Y'all better give that man some Emmys, some Golden Globes. SAG, y'all better give that man his awards, because they're doing their things. And Darius, he killed it in that episode. You knew that episode was just going to be crazy. But anyway, I think let me make sure that I got all my thoughts out there. But it also, now we saw Darius normal. Theodore was so out there that he made Darius come off like just a regular dude. But this looked like a movie. So it was crazy. He kept going back. And one more thing, and then another thing is, we saw how Paperboy and Earn and, you know, their other homie, they just roasted Sammy Sosa right quick. And I think that was significant too, because although, you know, most of us, you know, we say that Sammy, he changed his skin color, you know. It was his own choice to do that. But someone like Mike, you know, once you change his skin color, he's a black dude, but you're always going to be ridiculed, you know, as, you know, somewhat as a weirdo and as an outsider. So I think they wanted to touch on that, but they didn't want to go directly at it. So Sammy Sosa was a good way to touch on that without, you know, being too offensive, you know, with it. So I thought this was a brilliant episode. So shout out to Atlanta. I can't wait for the rest of the season. You know, this season is so good that I'm just going to do a reaction review of every episode going forward. So make sure to keep up with us, because I'm going to be doing this every week from now on, of course. Anyway, I'm Emmanuel. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. Let me know your theories, what you think about my theory. All right. Peace.